Hello and welcome to episode number 7 of Chel Squared. I'm your host, Andrew Chelney. We were supposed to record last night with Sarah Sivian. That unfortunately fell through. It didn't work out. But we do have an excellent show. Joining me tonight, we have Drew Johnson, covers the Bruins as well as NCAA hockey for the hockey writers. We have an episode and a half for you tonight for sure. We're going to get into the Jeff Skinner deal, which is a debacle for the Carolina Hurricanes. I saw that trade and I just could not believe what I saw. I couldn't believe it because the Carolina Hurricanes did so well this offseason. They got Dougie Hamilton. They bolstered their blue line, their goalie situation, which still isn't great, but an improvement over what it was. The only reason they didn't make the playoffs last year is because Cam Ward and Scott Darling couldn't stop a beach ball if they tried. Now you have Peter Mrazek in there, who is definitely an improvement. Is he an elite goaltender? No. Is he an improvement? Absolutely. That's the number one and number two and number three reason why Carolina didn't make the playoffs last year is the goaltending. Now you trade Jeff Skinner, who is a 30-goal scorer, who was a great talent. He's also young. He's still in his 20s. I just don't understand this trade for Buffalo. I really don't. The official trade is Buffalo has acquired Jeff Skinner from the Hurricanes in exchange for prospect forward Cliff Pugh, a second-round pick in the 2019 draft, a third-round pick in the 2020 draft, and a sixth-round pick in the 2020 NHL draft. Now, this is great for Buffalo because they bolstered their depth with the Ryan O'Reilly trade. They got Connor Sherry from the Penguins, who isn't going to score you a ton of goals, not a ton of points, but is a solid, I guess you could say, depth player. Again, he's not going to score you 50, 55 points, but in stretches, he's shown that he can play well. In other stretches, has shown that he just disappears. So it's going to be interesting to see how Connor does in Buffalo. But for the Sabres side, this is great for them. Now their top line is Jeff Skinner, Jack Eichel, and Sam Reinhart, or Kyle Okposo, or Jason Pominville maybe, or Vlad Sobotka, or Patrick Berglund, or somebody's going to fill out that first-line wing position. For Carolina, They traded away a 20-something who's shown he can score goals. He's a great player, and they traded him for a prospect and a couple of picks. I don't understand this move for Carolina at all. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into the Tom Wilson deal, which is a whole nother disgrace by itself. There's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to spoil it a little bit for you now. Tom Wilson should not be making over $5 million. That shouldn't be happening at all. I don't know why Washington thought that would be a good idea, but we'll get into that as well. We'll get into the Cody Ceci, Mark Stone, just Ottawa situation as a whole. What the hell is going on in Ottawa? I don't think Ottawa knows. I don't think Pierre Dorian knows. I don't think Carlson knows. No one knows what's going on in Ottawa, and it's a disgrace. First of all, on top of everything that's been going on this summer for the Ottawa Senators, they don't have a first-round pick this year. They traded it to Colorado for Matt Duchene. Not only are they going to be terrible this year, they're not going to compete. Their lineup is a joke, basically. Carlson's going to be on his way out. Mark Stone's had a one-year deal. He's probably going to be on his way out. They don't have anybody. And Craig Anderson apparently wants out as well. Like they don't have anybody to push them to the playoffs. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have a first-round pick. Even if they do tank, Colorado's going to have it. Their top 5 probably pick. I mean, they don't. Ottawa's a disgrace. We're going to get into what the Rangers have been doing the past week or so with Brady Skjei's deal, Ryan Spooner's deal, Kevin Hayes' deal. We're going to get into that, and we're going to get into college hockey a little bit with the World Junior Summer Showcase going on right now. There's games going on NHL Network. There's a ton of stuff going on today. Drew, how are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. I'm fired up, and I'm ready to go.
Same here, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So before we get into hockey, I need your opinion on pineapple on pizza. I've said this in the last episode. I am very, very passionate about the outlaw of pineapple on pizza. I think it's an abomination to pizza, especially, I'm from New York. I can not imagine going into a New York pizza shop and asking the pizza maker or the chef or whatever, or whatever their title is, looking them dead in the eye without any expression, without any emotion, and asking them to put pineapple on the pizza. I think it's disgusting. I think it's a disgrace to pizza. Drew, I need your take on this, and I need it now.
All right. Well, I've had pineapple on pizza, I'd say a handful of times. Never by my choice. I've never ordered it. It's always in a situation where my friend orders a pizza, happens to be pineapple on it. It's like, well, I'm going to have a slice of this or I'm not going to eat for the next 3 hours. So I might as well. And not a fan at all. I give me a bowl of pineapples and then give me a slice of cheese pizza. That's fine. Do not combine the two at all. I don't like it at all.
I can live with that take. That's a fair take to have. I mean, I'm not one of those people that likes pineapple as a whole. So maybe my perception of pineapple on pizza is skewed by just me not liking pineapple. But I think any fruits in general just shouldn't be on pizza.
Yeah,
Pizza
no
is
way.
not made to be a healthy option for the most part. There are some veggie pizzas out there. There's some healthier options for pizza. But for the most part, you don't order a slice of cheese pizza and think this is going to be healthy for you. So putting pineapple on top of it, it disgusts me, honestly, to watch someone, especially in an area where pizza is a delicacy in a way, to ruin it with pineapple. It's terrible.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I mean, throw some sausage or chicken or something on there. If you don't eat meat, then there's so many veggies that go good on a pizza. You don't need to ruin it with a fruit.
See, this is why I have people like Drew on, because he understands the fine delicacies of pizza and why you never put pineapple anywhere near pizza, let alone on top of pizza. That is a fine take, and I appreciate your take. Now, Drew, what do you think about the Jeff Skinner deal? Because I touched on it a little bit earlier in the show, and I can't wrap my head around it. Can you understand this deal? If from a Carolina perspective, can you see the light at the end of this tunnel, or is it just black?
Well, on the surface, when the deal first broke, I was appalled. I was like, wow, that is so low. I feel like any team could have offered something equal to that. That is getting away with robbery for the Sabres. But looking at Skinner's contract, he has the no movement clause on it. And it's not a modified one, not one where he has to give a list of teams or whatever. It's he chooses whether or not he gets traded, basically. I think a lot of it had to do, though, with the two teams kind of being at an end. I saw reports of them having discussed it and basically agreed to part ways this offseason. But yeah, that no movement clause really stabs Carolina in the back.
There's a report from Chad DiDominicus, who is the managing editor of SB Nation's Buffalo Sabres page, Die by the Blade, and he was listening to WGR 550, which is a radio station in Buffalo, and he was listening, and Jeff Skinner came on the station, and according to Chad, who was listening, and he tweeted this out, Skinner, and I quote, Skinner just said on at WGR 550, he did not turn down any offers. The Sabres trade was the first one the Hurricanes brought to him. Jeff Skinner
Really?
said that on the radio this afternoon.
Well, then you hear it from him and you take his word for it. I had seen reports that or I suppose tremblings, probably rumors that he had turned down other teams. But, I mean, if Skinner said that was the one team that was actually brought to him in that scenario, then I guess you have to take his word for it, which is kind of shocking that then you assume there were more deals talked about for Skinner. I'm sure there are plenty of other suitors giving Carolina a piece of their mind, and I'm surprised that nothing got that far as that where it came to Skinner's lap and he had to make a decision. That's surprising, but I mean, I can't call him a liar. You hear it from him, so.
It's just one of those things where rumors are one thing, but when the player comes on the radio or TV or something like that and kind of debunks everything that's been
Yeah.
talked about him over the past year or so, it's definitely telling. I mean, there might have been deals that Carolina considered that maybe weren't to the point, in the discussions that were that serious maybe, but Jeff Skinner is 26 years old. 26. He had some concussion issues earlier on in his career, but he's been very healthy over the past 4 seasons. He missed 5 games in 2014-2015, and he missed 3 games in 2016-2017. Didn't miss a game at all in 15-16, and didn't miss a game last season. He scored 37 goals, 63 points in 2016-17. Dropped a little bit to 24 goals and 49 points last season. But I mean, this guy, he scored more than 30 goals 3 separate times in his career. He's hit the 63-point mark twice, once the first time in his rookie season, second time in 2016-17. It's one of those things where, and Carolina I think they need the offense. When a guy like Jeff Skinner is on your team, you don't just move him for picks when you don't necessarily need the picks. It just doesn't make sense. Maybe you can shine some light on Cliff Poo as a prospect. I mean, this guy was drafted in the third round in the 2016 NHL draft. He's put up 86 points with the London Knights in 2016-17, put up 84 points last season with the Knights, and then traded to Kingston. He's obviously, he's got some scoring potential probably, but can you explain to me, is Cliff Poo this good? Am I missing something?
I mean, to be honest, I hadn't heard about him before this trade, which tells me, he's not one of the most well-known prospects in the league right now. I mean, you mentioned his stats; those are definitely solid stats. But you would think if it was a prospects and pick deal in return for Skinner, it would be a more well-known guy. That's simply not it. I mean, he could go on to become a good player in the NHL someday, but you would think they'd be receiving a potential superstar in return. But that's just not the case.
The second I saw this trade, and even now I'm looking at it, I simply, because there's some deals which we might not agree with, but at least we kind of maybe sort of see the point of view from the team that that we think might have lost the deal. Looking at it from Carolina's perspective, I see zero upside as opposed to just keeping Jeff Skinner. Cliff Poo could be the next best thing for all that we know, and who knows, they might draft the next Crosby or McDavid or whoever in the second round next year. Who knows? But face value, trading someone who's proven they can score 30 goals, 60 points, who's 26, who's healthy, for a question mark and a prospect and absolute question marks and draft picks. I mean, what, unless Carolina has some ridiculous trick up their sleeves to package Cliff and these picks and maybe something else to a different team, say maybe, I don't know, maybe Columbus for Panarin, I don't know, but I just, for a team that was this close to making the playoffs last season, and the only reason why they didn't was because of goaltending, to make this move and probably take a step back, unless they have a move that they're thinking of, that they're planning ahead on, which, I mean, doesn't seem that way right now, but who knows? I just do not understand this deal.
I mean, I think a big part of it is the fact that Carolina had already basically made up their mind on moving on from Skinner, which for opposing GMs kind of puts in their mind, well, we don't have to give up as much as we originally would have had to, say it was 2 or 3 seasons ago. Um, but even so, that's so low, which is what makes me a little bit suspicious and what had me assuming that he would have had to turn down other deals, and Buffalo would have thought, they're the only man in the race for him. But I mean, he said that was the only team brought his way, that he was able to, give the red light or green light or whatever on. There was no others. So, with that said, it doesn't make sense. It only made sense within the context of he turned down other teams and Buffalo was the only one left standing that had a shot. Yeah, I can't wrap my head around it, with those circumstances thrown aside where that was the only team that was brought to him.
Jeff Skinner, of course, drafted in the first round in 2010. In 2012, another first round pick, Tommy Wilson, got I guess a great deal for him. Not for the Capitals, not for a lot of Capitals fans. A lot of Capitals fans defended this deal. They defended it with the Capitals just won the cup defense, which doesn't make any sense from a long-term perspective. I mean, you won the cup, congratulations, but signing Tom Wilson to this ridiculous deal doesn't excuse a terrible contract. The Capitals won the cup, awesome, sure, but I don't see why that should overshadow the 5.166, 666 deal. Thank you, Cap Friendly. Until 2024. Like, I get it, Tom Wilson, he's only 24 years old, but at the same time, this guy put up 35 points playing on the first line, with the majority of that time with either Ovechkin or Backstrom or both. He played 78 games this season, 14 goals and 21 assists. I mean, you could talk about his dirty hits. He's a hashtag grit player. He's a hashtag character player. Sure, if you want to sign him to third or even second line caliber money, that makes a lot more sense. But to sign Tom Wilson, career high of 35 points, who's 24, to this $5.17 million deal, it sounds worse than it is, because 5.166 divided by 79.5, which is the current cap, is only 6.5% of the cap, which isn't too bad when you look at it from that perspective. But from a long-term point of view, they could have had him for cheaper, is what I think.
Yeah, I definitely think they could have had him for cheaper, for sure. Along with the Stanley Cup defense that I've seen on Twitter, I saw a lot of people arguing that his physical play, the fact that he hits and fights, is well worth it. And that makes him a guy worth keeping around, but not for that money. It doesn't excuse that. I feel like they definitely could have gotten him for less. And you're right, like only 35 points last season. That's the first time he broke the 30-point threshold. The second highest to that was 23 points in 2015-16. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when he played on the first line with Ovechkin for at least the latter half of the season. And, that's all you get. I feel like any player on a line with Ovechkin should at least be racking up assists, more than 21 in a season anyway. And they definitely overpaid. And I mean, you're right, he is only 23, so they're basically banking on him growing, and maybe putting up something like 50 points or something, which doesn't seem all too realistic looking at his history and just his play last season. I mean, if he does produce that well, then yeah, it's a good deal, but I don't really see it happening.
To give Wilson credit here, He did put up 15 points in 21 playoff games in this previous playoff race, which could be a potential glimpse into what Wilson could potentially do.
Right.
However, he scored 5 goals, 10 assists. That's good, right? You want that out of your first line winger to put up 15 points in 21 games, especially in the playoffs. But I mean, if the team is previously underachieved, there's no doubt about it. Looking at Tom Wilson's previous playoff stats, in 2016-17, put in 13 games, 3 goals, no assists. 15-16, 12 games, no goals and assists. Same thing in 14-15, in 13 games, no goal and assist. It makes sense that Tom Wilson's stats are much improved this year, especially in the playoffs, because the Caps as a whole, obviously they won the Cup, so they didn't underachieve, they overachieved, and they were not the best team on paper, but on the ice they won the Cup, so obviously they did something right. But I can't see a situation in which Tom Wilson can not only keep up the 15 points in 21 games stretch for the entire season, but to have less than 40 points on the first line for a first line winger, I can't see a justification, a legitimate justification for overpaying for Tom Wilson.
Yeah, I don't really see it either. I mean, best of luck to him. I hope it works out. I hope like you said earlier, it's a great deal for him. If it pans out and, like I said, he produces 50-something points next season, then you look at it as a good deal. They were wizards. They saw into the future. But he has potential. He's 20. He was 23 last season. He's 24 now. But his room for growth, that window is closing. I'd say forwards, they hit their peaks in the mid-20s or late 20s, and so that window is definitely closing. And yeah, I just don't really see a great justification for it either.
The thing with the Capitals is I think now they've really handcuffed themselves with this deal, because right now they have about $1.1 million in cap space at the moment. If you fast forward to not this upcoming season, but in 2019-2020, they will have a majority of the team either a UFA or an RFA. Burakovsky, who's going to make $3 million this upcoming season, is going to be an RFA. Brett Connolly making $1.5 million, going to be a UFA. Smith Pelly making $1 million, going to be a UFA. Jakub Vrana, who's still on his entry-level deal, is going to be an RFA at the end of the next season. You have these guys who... Backstrom, also a huge contract. After the 2020 season is going to be a UFA making $6.7 million right now. In terms of long-term cap management, I think if Washington just shed $1 million from this Tom Wilson deal, kept it to 4.2, it would make a lot more sense. But at 5, almost at 5.2 at this ludicrous length, it makes sense because he's 24, he's young, he'll play for a long time. The longevity makes sense if Wilson stays healthy, which he tends to be healthy. There's a lot of players that aren't healthy because of him, because of the way he hits, which is a shame. Tom Wilson's a decent player, but he needs to lay off the hits and the headshots and all of that. But that's a discussion for a whole other day with Tom Wilson. But I mean, in terms of cap space, the Capitals were looking bad this past season, which is why they got rid of Marcus Johansson to the Devils. And before the season started, I thought that really solidify the Capitals as a fringe, potentially out of the playoffs team, because they got worse, I thought, and they proved everybody wrong in that sense, and then they obviously won the cup. But I mean, in terms of long-term cap management, the Caps are not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of that too. I mean, you listed the people that are the players that are going to be coming off the or coming into free agency next summer for them, and there's not like a lot of the time you look for like, okay, there's a veteran who has a big contract and we can part with him because he's not going to be a part of this team's future. That's great, but that's not happening here. You know, Burakovsky is the highest contract right now that will be expiring next year, and that he's going to get way more than $3 million, I would say for sure. And then beyond that, the people they could probably or potentially part with as UFAs, you know, 1.5 million, 1 million, you know, it's just change here and there. And they're going to have to re-sign Verana too, who will be an RFA. And so, yeah, I definitely think it basically handcuffs them, you know, at least the next few seasons, trying to figure out their cap, especially when it comes around, like you said, to Backstrom re-signing. Yeah, it really it doesn't look good for them going into the future with the considering the guys they have to re-sign, who are young, and also, you know, the more veteran guys they're going to have to re-sign. Not to mention, if you want to keep Ovechkin around after 21, 22, I mean, with the current cap, how much do you think he's going to get paid? I mean, you see Tavares landing $11 million. He could easily be paid more than that, especially if the cap roof rises a little bit, which will help them with the Wilson deal. But still, they're going to have some hefty contracts coming up, and yeah, that definitely handcuffs them quite a bit.
In terms of teams that definitely give themselves leeway, I have to give credit to the Rangers, not only because I'm a Rangers fan at heart, but because of the deals that they made this past week or so. They gave Brady Skjei a $5.25 million deal until 2024. He's 24. He's a solid defenseman. And I mean, that's Tom Wilson money right there. I'm not sure if Skjei can live up to that contract more than Tom Wilson can. But he's great, and that's a very team friendly but also a fair contract. They did give Ryan Spooner a 2-year $4 million deal, which baffled me, baffled the majority of other Rangers fans, definitely baffled Rick Carpinello, who covers the Rangers for The Athletic. It's just one of those things where we as a fan base thought either Spooner or Nemesnikov would be dealt at some point this summer by the Rangers. Vlad Nemesnikov got a deal in the beginning of the summer, and then Ryan Spooner, Nemesnikov got the deal, and the majority of us assumed, okay, so Spooner's on his way out then because one of them was going to be moved. Not the case. Ryan Spooner stays 2 years, $4 million per. The one contract, which is fair, you know, it's a team, another one of those team-friendly, player-friendly deals. You know, no quarrels with it. It was just surprising because there was this notion from not only the fans but from a lot of the writers as well that either Spooner or Messikov were going to be dealt at some point, and they are obviously not as of right now. And then you have Kevin Hayes, which is the one contract that I really disagreed with, because Kevin Hayes is 26 years old and he only got a 1-year deal at $5.175 million, and it's just, this deal rubs me the wrong way because Kevin Hayes is a terrific hockey player, and this uncertainty from the Rangers, it looks like, to give him more than a 1-year deal, it is scary, because he definitely is worth it, especially for that price. And that is one of those that's a deal where I'm looking at it and I'm just not sure what they're thinking. I'm fairly confident in Jeff Gordon and what he brings to the table. Kevin Hayes has put up very solid numbers in his 4-year career all with the Rangers. He put up career high in goals this year with 25 in 76 games played. Only 19 assists, which is a career low for him, so 44 points overall, but he put up 49 points in the year before. He put up 45 in his rookie season, put up 36 in his sophomore season, but it's just one of those things where, he puts up... He has 174 points in 310 games, so more than half a point a game player. He deserves a multi-year deal, and only give him one and kind of leave him hanging. I just don't like it.
Yeah, on the Kevin Hayes front, the one year can definitely be concerning. I mean, it's basically a bridge deal when the player's hitting their prime. I mean, the only way it might make sense is if they plan on bringing in someone else to replace him within the season or, next summer. But yeah, not committing to him long term. I think that's going to hit their cap pretty hard when he goes around to re-sign, looking for a longer deal next summer. Like I said earlier, the cap seems to be ever rising right now. If you give the cap another, $3 million bump, then he's going to be expecting a little bit more. And if he performs well, if he improves even in this next season, that's going to rise his stock even more. So he's going to be a more expensive signing at a long-term deal next year than he is this year. I think he probably would have made more than the 5.1 this summer if he signed a long-term deal, but next year it's going to be above what they would have paid him this year for a long term. So that doesn't make too much sense to me, but I mean, maybe they have a plan that we don't know about and it'll work out. The Brady contract I like a lot. Yeah, I definitely think that is a very fair deal for both sides. I mean, he soaked up, roughly 21 minutes of ice time per game. And I mean, that's what you want to be paying a defenseman who soaks up that amount of time for you, for sure. And I think, it's probably a little bit team friendly, but overall, I think it's fair. I mean, he could probably work his way up to 5.5 if he really wanted to. But I mean, who's to say what goes on in those negotiations? On the Spooner front, as someone who covers the Bruins, I have a lot to say about him. I'm kind of shocked at the $4 million deal for 2 years. He's 26. He's he's basically hitting his prime, and so what you see is basically what you get. I think he's a pretty good third line center. He's a great third line center offensively, but if you take his defense into consideration, that's where he's kind of lacking. That's basically why the Bruins thought they could part with him, among other things, with prospects and whatnot coming up. But when Claude Julien was the coach, that was the big thing. He was not playing defense as well as the coach would have expected. And, the fan base saw that too. They really got on him for that. And that's basically the biggest reason why he found his way out of Boston, in my mind. So, I'm surprised in that contract. I mean, it is only 2 years. They're not committing to him long term. I think, if he is performing the same way he is, I think you see him slip away to free agency at the end of this contract and the Rangers look for something different, whether that's through a trade or free agency.
I would hope not. I hope I hope at least Kevin Hayes stays. I hope, Brady Skjei is going to stay for a while. In terms of Ryan Spooner, I mean, he didn't play a whole ton, obviously, because the season ended shortly for the Rangers. He only played about a month, so I didn't get a whole ton of exposure to him. I watched him in Boston, not as closely as you did per se, but it's the collective fan base, myself included, for the most part, thought at least one of Nemesnikov or Spooner would be gone. Neither of which it's not the case. Both of them are staying. It's definitely I mean, it's only 2 years per, so it's not too bad, but it's definitely a situation to keep an eye on. At least the Rangers have somewhat of an idea. I would like to think that they do, and it seems that they do have a plan. But a team that definitely has zero clue, doesn't understand what they're doing, what the plan is, what's going on, what day it is, what time it is. I don't think Ottawa knows which country it's located in right now because their team is a mess. Absolute complete mess. They settled with Mark Stone, who puts up 60 points. He put up 62 points last season in 58 games. 20 goals, 42 assists. He was more than a point a game player in Ottawa last season. They gave him a 1-year deal at $7.35 million. He is 26 years old. He has put up 64 points in his first full season with the Senators in 2014-2015. 61 points the year after that. 54 in 2016-17, which is a little low for him, but still 54 points, nothing to sneeze at. And then he just completely burst and scored more than a point a game last season. And to look at those stats and turn around and give Mark Stone a 1-year deal, this is your primary scorer. You have Mark Stone, you have Bobby Ryan with a ridiculous contract. He's a good player, not for that contract, which is a shame because you can look around the league and you can name a few players like that. Prime example being Rick Nash with his contract now expiring. Great player, not so great of a contract. Brad Richards, another one that comes to mind as a Rangers fan. A $6.65 deal, I believe it was, for a multitude of years. Who was good in New York, a solid player, just a little too much money, which is not the player's fault. You also have Matt Duchene locked up for another year until 2019, when his $6 million contract ends, which is one of the worst trades for Ottawa, like, ever. Honestly, it was such a when the deal was first announced, it sort of maybe from a certain perspective kind of made sense for Ottawa, because you get Matt Duchene and all of a sudden you add another dynamic forward to your core. And maybe you can potentially go on a playoff run. Well, that didn't happen. Duchene was awful for the first couple of months for the first couple of months as a Senator. He picked up steam later on, but it didn't matter then. You have Marian Gaborik, who's 36, who they acquired from LA, and they got Mikhail Bodker as well. It's just one of those things where Ottawa is not going to compete at all. They're not going to do anything. You give Mark Stone a 1-year deal for some reason. I don't get, even if you want him gone. Let's say there's a situation in which Ottawa wants Mark Stone, a 60-point scorer, gone off the team. I don't get that, but let's just say Ottawa does. If you plan on trading him, why not give him at least a 2-year deal? At least a 2-year deal, so that teams at the deadline see that, and that's an added chip to the table that you can bring. We have a 60-point scorer, but also his contract isn't up this year. That adds more value to the player and the contract. But no, you give him a 1-year deal. Cody Cece's out here wanting $6 million like he's a top 4 defenseman. The Senators originally wanted to give him $3.5 million, which is a lot in itself. He's not worth that much. An arbitrator gave him a 1-year $4.3 million deal, which is I tweeted this on Chel at Chel Squared, by the way. Shameless plug. Follow at Chel Squared on Twitter, Chel Squared on Facebook as well. Like the page. It's $3.3 million too much. Cody Cece is worth maybe $1 million, maybe, as a 7th defenseman. He's not good. He's not worth that contract. There's so much to unpack here with the Ottawa Senators. Drew, I need your thoughts on this before I go ballistic, because Ottawa doesn't know what country it's in, what planet it's on, what solar system it's located in, what galaxy we're in. They don't know what's going on, period.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a mess over there. I think the route for success is for Bobby Ryan to find a time machine and return to his form in his early years in Anaheim, where he was putting up some decent numbers. Not going to happen. Gaborik needs to also find a time machine and go back to his glory days with the Rangers. Not going to happen. You need Craig Anderson to wow, that was a fumble. Craig Anderson to win a Vezina.
At least you know what? At least he didn't butt fumble, right? So
yeah. It's not quite that bad. That's one we remember in New England and will for some time.
Never forget that. Absolutely.
They need Craig Anderson to win a Vezina, and they need Karlsson to stick around and sign a very, very, very team-friendly deal. And then maybe they'll start to figure this mess out. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, we heard stuff about Karlsson being shipped out. Everybody was saying like he's going to get traded to Tampa by the end of the day. And then all of a sudden it's like, nope, that's not happening. We'll see you in September when something maybe happens with that. It just feels like they don't have a direction right now. They're not committing to a rebuild. I mean, they have decent young players. Like you said, Stone is a great player, but they didn't commit to him for more than a year. I think they're just kind of, juggling their options and not really picking a direction here. I think they either got to commit to a rebuild because I don't really see a way of them working this all out. I think you mentioned earlier that Anderson wants out. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. There's obviously, not 100% factual as of now, but that is a definite rumor going around the league. I saw that on social media as well. I'm not 100% sure on how truthful this Anderson situation is, but he can't be happy. He's 37. No. His contract is up in 2 more years, making 4.75, which isn't bad for a starting goaltender. But I mean, Craig Anderson isn't getting any better. He wasn't great this past season. He wasn't good, and he's like I said, he's not getting any better. So I wouldn't put it past him if he wants out. Like, it makes sense because he's 37, because he has a modified no trade clause according to Cap Friendly. Shout out to Cap Friendly as always. The Craig Anderson can submit a 10-team no trade list. But that's about it. And Craig Anderson, I mean, if he wants out, I can't blame him. I'm sure you couldn't either. I'm sure Senators fans can't blame him either.
You can't blame him. And I think if that's true, if he really does want out, then that just indicates how big of a problem Ottawa is having right now. If a 37-year-old goaltender who has played the majority of his career with your team wants out instead of wanting to retire there, then that's a huge issue. That indicates there's something not just wrong with the team on paper, but there's something wrong in the locker room. There's something wrong with management. Something is way off if a 37-year-old player who has played the majority of his career with your team wants out. It doesn't make sense unless that's going on. That definitely indicates a huge problem for Ottawa. If that is true, it is just rumors, but if that is true, then yeah, it's just wild right now in Ottawa.
I mean, I can't, you nailed it, I think. You can't blame Anderson for wanting to leave if he does. I can't blame a player for potentially, wanting to win, potentially wanting to go far in the playoffs one more time.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, Craig Anderson is a molehill right now on a mountain of problems for the Ottawa Senators, and that is putting it lightly. They don't know they don't even know like what room they're in. I'm sure Pierre Dorian and Senators management, I'm not even sure if they know who they are at this point, because this team is a mess. This team is abysmal. They don't have like I said earlier, they don't have their first round pick this year. They're going to be bad, and Colorado is going to snatch up their probable top 5, top 10 pick. It's a mess.
It's an absolute mess. Like I said, it's going to take some players finding a time machine or just some out of this world performance from some of these players that no one sees coming to like right the ship right now. Yeah, I really think the biggest issue is they're not committing one way or another. They're not committing to a rebuild. They're just sticking with the players they have right now, not really making any huge deals. Like if that Carlson deal goes through and they get a bunch of young pieces, then you're like, all right, then the future, at least you can say the future is bright. But right now you can't really say that. It's a real shame. I mean, as someone who's grown up in New England and as a Bruins fan and now covers the Bruins, it's a sigh of relief almost with what with Tampa and Toronto, and I think even Florida making a push this year. Ottawa being at the bottom of the barrel kind of eases those problems a little bit, but for them, man, for citizens of Ottawa, that is, I really don't know what to make of it, and I mean, I feel bad for them. I really do.
Absolutely. I mean, I know a few Sens fans, and they were tripping me pretty hard when the Sens beat the Rangers in 6 in 2017, which is a series that the Rangers should have won. Alain Vigneault single-handedly lost that series. A abominable coach. What a terrible coach, and I'm glad he's no longer the coach of the Rangers. He was awful. But the Senators don't have a future, like you said, but teams that do have futures, for sure, Team USA, Team Sweden, Team Finland. You have been keeping tabs on the World Junior Summer Showcase. Who has impressed you so far in the few games that you've seen, and which players do you think are going to make the biggest mark for their collegiate team coming up?
I mean, I think you got to start with Quinn Hughes. I think that's basically a no-brainer. He impressed me a lot in the bit of the showcase that I've seen. He seems to be as agile as a forward. He skates around. He'll skate deep into the zone. He can dangle like a forward for sure, but he plays defense. He plays good defense too in his own zone. It's just amazing. He's a great all-around player. He's going to be great for Vancouver some year, and for this year, he's going to be great for the Wolverines. They are lucky to have him back, and I think the decision to go back to the NCAA bodes well for him. I think it bodes well for a number of prospects. I know Wahlstrom is going back to the NCAA instead of the Islanders. And Brady Skjei is making his decision on whether to go to BU or to Ottawa, which kind of leaning towards BU after that discussion. He may be too. So I think for their development, it is actually stronger to be in the NCAA because you're going to see, they're with players more around their skill level. They're obviously around players at their age level, which I think is a big reason why you see Quinn Hughes excelling so much in this showcase, and a number of the forwards for the USA as well, and even the defensemen for that matter, excelling so well is because they're in a under-20 tournament. These are guys within their age and skill level. If you throw Quinn Hughes or Tkachuk or whoever onto NHL ice right now, there's a pretty good chance they're just going to get run over because it's a completely different game. So I think that progressing in the NCAA, at least for another season, bodes well for them. And I think it's just going to make them better players in the long run.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I love your insight on this. I cover, I'm the beat reporter for the Syracuse hockey team. They are D1 club. They're a very good team. I love the boys. They're awesome. Coaching staff is great, and I love what they're doing in Syracuse. The only problem is the arena doesn't seat enough people to meet NCAA standards. Therefore, they're not D1 NCAA, but they are D1. They are good enough to be D1 NCAA for sure. I have no, I go to Syracuse, so there's obviously going to be some inherent bias there. but as an objective hockey fan, watching that team and watching the way they play on the ice and how they interact with each other off the ice and all of that, even though I've only been covering them for a short amount of time, I can see that they're a tight-knit group, that they're a solid group on the ice, and they would absolutely wreck D1 NCAA, but because of their arena situation, they're not right now. So I don't get a chance to see the stars of tomorrow in Quinn Hughes and other powerhouse schools like Michigan, like North Dakota, like BC, like BU. I don't get that privilege per se. So which teams do you think are really, really going to impress not only collegiate hockey fans, but scouts as well?
I think, with getting Hughes back, the Wolverines stand a good chance, not just because of Hughes. They have a good roster all around, and they made it very far in the tournament last year. I think they stand a chance of making another solid run. If Tkachuk stays with BU, I think you see them making a really good push and find them in the Final Four this season. They have a really solid team. They won the Hockey East Championship. They finished fourth in the standings for the regular season, but won the Hockey East tournament and made their way to the national tournament as well. Those are definitely two teams I'd look out for. Got to look out for Minnesota too. Obviously, the Bulldogs won it this year. I think they stand a good chance of at least pushing for a repeat. I think those are the big contenders. Notre Dame, too, who is in there. I think you see a lot of the same teams really pushing for it. I wouldn't outright predict a Bulldogs repeat, but I think those teams I listed are going to definitely be in the national tournament this year and be making a push. I went to Quinnipiac University for a little while, and so I've gotten to see them play, and they were a really good team there a few years ago. I believe I was a freshman at the time when they were really hitting their stride, and they've sort of fallen down the standings and the rankings in the past few seasons. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn it around pretty soon. I know when I had entered the school my freshman year, there were a lot of promising freshmen hopping on board who would be becoming seniors this year, and they had a lot of other prospects, coming in and committing. I would look out for them, whether it's this year or the next few years. I think they're going to be in the running for both, NCAA championships, but also from a prospects point of view. They're a team that scouts are going to want to take a good look at. But yeah, I think the schools I mentioned before, who have already seen success in recent seasons, are going to see more of it.
That's awesome. And by the way, I just want to jump back to Ottawa and the Mark Stone situation just for a quick second. I just saw this tweet on my timeline at Puckpedia said earlier this morning, said and I quote, "The Senators signed Mark Stone 1 year, $7.35 million. He'll be a UFA after this year. He is represented by Craig Oster, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Oster, at the Hockey Agency. Of note, he also represents J.G. Pageau and Eric Carlson."
Wow. Good company.
That is definitely something to keep in mind. I think if Carlson goes, I think Stone goes. They might be a package deal. I mean, not in the same trade, but I very much doubt that if Carlson leaves, Stone stays, and vice versa. But this has been an excellent show, I think. I love your takes. The pineapple on pizza take is my favorite by far. I'm glad you agree.
Yeah, probably the best.
I'm glad you agree. You know what? I said this last week on the show. I'm going to call my local representative and ask him to ban pineapple on pizza. Make it illegal. Because it's a mess. You can't... Don't even get me started. I mean, I joke a little bit about it, but pineapple on pizza is an objective L for anyone that I'm sorry, pineapple on pizza it should not be an option. You should not be able to go to a pizza shop and have the audacity to ask the guys behind the counter to put pineapple on their beautiful creation of a pizza.
You gotta start with the restaurants themselves. They're the ones ordering the pineapple so they can serve those customers. Just get it off of their orders, get it out of the store, and then it'll end.
Can't argue there. I mean, you make a good point, and you can't order the pineapple if there's no pineapple to be ordered, right? So
Exactly.
you make a solid point. You know what? You have got some excellent points. If hockey, NCAA obviously more important. Hockey takes are more important, but at the same time, this pineapple debate is crucial to the integrity of this country. Because pineapple on pizza. I'm sorry, but it's yikes. If you we're not gonna go down this rabbit hole anymore. But pineapple on pizza, man, I can't. I will eventually find someone to go on Chel Squared to defend pineapple on pizza, and I cannot wait for their defense because it's indefensible. But
You probably won't get to hockey on that show. You'll
yeah,
soak up an hour talking about that, I'm
you
sure.
know what? You're right. We will spend, forget the hockey. We'll literally just spend the entire hour arguing about pizza because it's as a New Yorker, it is embedded in me to defend good pizza, and pineapple ruins pizza, in my opinion. Of course.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. No pineapple for me. Like I said, unless it's separate. I'll eat a bowl of pineapples, and I'll have some pizza. I will not combine the two. Not by my choice, anyway. Not by my choice.
I see what you mean by the pineapple, on the side. It's one of those biases that I have. I'm not a pineapple fan. I'm not one of those people that eat pineapple on a regular basis. In fact, I don't eat pineapple at all, really. I love fruits, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love fruits. All kinds of fruits. Actually, this really cool trick I have, I guess you could call it a trick, is for the past most of my life, actually, I love just eating raw lemons and raw limes. I love it. I love the sour taste of it. I absolutely love it, especially if I'm at a bar now, and there's a lemon on the drink, or there's a lime or whatever. It's kind of become like a bar trick. I'll turn to someone and I go, I'll eat this lime slice if you give me $5. And sometimes people say yes to that, and I make money by doing what I already normally do. So people think it's weird, but I think pineapple on pizza is weird. So we're even.
I think you found yourself a career.
Yeah, professional lime eater. How about that? I'll change this podcast to Lime Squared, and
Nope.
I will just spend the hour eating lemons and limes and talking about how much I love eating lemons and limes and how much I hate pineapple on pizza. Oh man, this has been a show. This has been a show and a half. Drew, you are the best. Plug your social media. Plug where you publish your articles, and I will make sure that everyone out there listening who has stuck to the very end, I appreciate you listening, follows you and reads your articles.
Yeah, definitely check me out on thehockeywriters.com. I cover the Boston Bruins and NCAA hockey. And I also cover the Bruins for blackandgoldhockey.com. It's black in gold, like N, not and. It's a mistake some people make, including me in the very beginning. But yeah, blackandgoldhockey.com, and the Hockey Writers are where you'll find my writing. And then, of course, on Twitter, Doobschmoob, DOOBSHMOOB. You'll see all of my tweets about hockey and more. If that is of interest to you. Kind of some out there stuff as well, in addition to all that hockey. So if you're into that, definitely give me a follow there. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, man.
Absolutely. By the way, Doobschmoob,
Yeah.
where did you get that Twitter handle from? Because this needs to be discussed for a second here.
For sure. Yeah, so I think it might have, was it when I was in middle school, maybe freshman year of high school? Well, basically, I have this other friend named Drew, so it got super confusing. So they just started calling me Doob, and we call him by his last name. So neither of us are called Drew anymore. But they started calling me Doob. So then when it came to like making social media accounts at one point, I think it might have been like Instagram it started with or something. I was like, oh, well, Schmoob kind of rhymes with Doob, and yeah, that'll be it. There wasn't too much thought into it. But I think it comes out to be a pretty good brand name.
I love how you've kept to it. You haven't changed it. It's part of you. It's part of your identity. It's part of your core. You haven't changed it, and it's there for all its glory. That's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely gets a few laughs. When I've been on podcasts, most people comment on that right away. So I'm happy about it. I'm happy it at least gets a laugh.
It's a topic for conversation, that's for sure. I mean, it's interesting, it's unique, it's definitely out there. It's definitely a great this has been Drew, you're the best, and I wish you nothing but the best, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right, thank you, man. Talk to you later.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening to Chel Squared. I'm Andrew Chelney. Of course, follow us on social media on Twitter at Chel Squared, on Facebook, Chel Squared. Follow me on social media if you're inclined at Andrew Chelney. Of course, subscribe on iTunes, on Google Play, on SoundCloud, on Stitcher, on all of that great stuff. If you rate the show, if you like the show, if you subscribe to the show, a puppy gets a hug and a treat from its owner. I don't make the rules, just spreading knowledge. Anyways, this has been Chel Squared. I'm Andrew Chelney, and I'll talk to you again next week.